Heather, just 22 years old, had recently embarked on her college journey, settling into her job. It felt like life was full of promise. Maples' smile and laughter were contagious, and her constant chatter filled the air. She radiated warmth and energy, uplifting everyone around her.
I am really sorry that I didn't send you anything yesterday, and I hope you slept good and that we can talk soon.
Well, everything changed on January 2nd, 2015, when Heather Maples didn't show up for work. Her lifeless body was discovered in her apartment, partly unclothed. Who had the right to take Heather Maples' life? Detectives faced a challenging investigation because Heather had no enemies, and the motive behind this crime remained unclear. If not for one small detail, Heather Maples' death could have remained unsolved, and the criminal would have gone unpunished.
This is the most important conversation you had in your life. The only way your bloody fingerprint got there is your hand's bloody. And you had your hands on her while you were raping her.
On a typical morning at the real estate agency in Murfreesboro, Tennessee on August 7th, 12H, 2015, Kelsey Price arrived at work and began her usual tasks. Heather, her friend and colleague, was running late, which wasn't surprising to Kelsey, as Heather was known for her lack of punctuality. Kelsey started calling Heather to wake her up, but received no answer. The previous night, Heather had planned to go to a bar with some friends and had asked Kelsey to come get her if she overslept or didn't answer her calls. Therefore, Kelsey wasn't concerned. The girls' apartments were located in the same complex where they worked. Upon arriving, Kelsey found the front door unlocked. Easily entering inside, she saw her friend lying on the bed, sleeping on her stomach, wearing only a crop top and no underwear. Assuming Heather had a wild night, Kelsey tried to wake her up, but there's no response. She then tapped Heather's foot, attempting to rouse her from her sleep. No one had ever interrupted. Maple's foot was so cold that Kelsey literally jumped back in horror at the realization of what happened. Kelsey Price, in horror, stepped out of the apartment and called 911. Soon, emergency services. Detective Tommy Massey was one of the first to arrive at the crime scene, and the forensic team meticulously combed through the apartment. Heather was indeed partially undressed, with signs of blows on her face. The hair of the poor girl was soaked in blood, which was also splattered on the walls. It was Massey and his colleague Detective Maples, coincidentally sharing Heather's surname, recalled this crime as a horrifying nightmare. That's understandable, as witnessing such a heart-wrenching scene is extremely difficult. Heather Nicole Maples was born on August 23, 1992, in Ocala, Florida. Her mother jokingly called Heather Hurricane Baby. This nickname was entirely justified, as many envied the energy and courage that Heather possessed. In 2004, Jennifer Hunter gave birth to her second child. Heather welcomed a brother, Ryan, into her life with great joy. However, Ryan was later diagnosed with significant developmental delays, and the older sister, of her own accord, dedicated all her free time to him. She took care of him, happily spent time with. Heather was in the 7th grade at the time and devoted all the following years until graduation to Ryan, showing immense love and dedication to her brother. At the age of 22, Heather Maples made the bold decision to leave her Texas home and embark on a new chapter in Tennessee, pursuing her dream of becoming a psychologist. The journey began with the call from her former classmate, Chaz, inviting her to join him in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where he studied. According to him, it was a perfect place for Heather, a small college town where she could get a great opportunity to prepare for college. Heather accepted, and in January 2015, the future student went to Chaz in Murfreesboro. By the way, their relationship soon turned romantic. A completely different life began for the girl. With the support of her best friend, Kelsey, Heather found a job in the office of the residential complex where they lived. Maples was balancing work with her college preparations. Her friends and family supported her. Everything seemed to be going well, but soon her relationship with Chaz began to crumble, which led to a breakup, and Chaz moved away. At the beginning of August, she excitedly called her mother to share the wonderful news. She had been accepted to college. Her mother, filled with pride, was thrilled for Heather's achievement. However, a week later, Heather failed to show up for work, sparking concern and uncertainty. The detectives somewhat understood. Considering the nature of the crime, it could have been related to Heather's personal life. At that point, most of her friends were considered suspects. And frankly speaking, there were reasons for that. Upon examining the apartment, there were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Heather likely knew her, attacked her, and possibly let them in herself. After a thorough investigation of the crime scene, several important pieces of evidence were discovered: unknown DNA and a hair that did not belong to the victim. All of this was sent for analysis to identify the suspect. However, the most significant piece of evidence was a clear, bloody fingerprint on the right side of Heather's. Detective Massey explained that if someone had deliberately dipped their finger in ink and intentionally left their mark, it wouldn't have been so clear in its size. Of course, this print was sent for analysis as well. Additionally, Heather's mobile phone was found in the apartment, but without the password, accessing its contents was impossible. This is where Kelly came in handy. She played a crucial role, not only helping with the phone, but also deciding to inform Heather's mother of her death, believing it would be better coming from someone who loved and cared for Heather. Detective Maze hoped to get a lot of information about Heather from her friend Kelsey Price. He wanted to know everything about the victim's personal life, especially her relationship with Chaz. Kelsey told the detective that her relationship was quite tense, as Chaz had obvious anger management issues, and sometimes he was too aggressive and cruel towards Heather. So the girl decided to, and therefore the police immediately decided to investigate Chaz. But an unexpected turn of events occurred. A young man named Michael was determined to access the crime scene despite the caution tapes. He had keys to Heather's apartment. How do you know Heather? I met her at the bar. This is really rude, but I gotta ask it because sometimes details are important. Sometimes you're not the first. The time you met her, did you have sex with her? Or I did not. I've never had any contact. I've never. So you never had sex with her. Did they ever? Okay. Talk with John Dodge the next time anyone went home, because Anatoly, John Dodge wasn't home that evening. According to Michael, on the evening before her death, Heather called him and invited him for dinner, which he accepted immediately. She called me at 11:40. So 11, she called. She tells me that I need to come to the bar. She really needs me right now. There's people hitting on her and she's really upset. I was like, okay, I'll be there. As Michael recounted, Heather was in trouble. A young man named Ottavio was bothering her and was quite aggressive. Immediately after the incident, Michael offered to drive Heather home. She orders biscuits, gravy, two eggs, so as per his statement. It was around 2:30 in the morning on August 7th, the last time he saw Heather. Additionally, during the interrogation, Michael mentioned that Heather's front door should have been unlocked because he had her keys, since she was dressed in a dress and didn't have pockets to carry them. And he simply forgot to return them after unlocking the door. So Michael was very cooperative and did not seem like a liar at all. But investigators had to take his fingerprints and a DNA sample. They also contacted the bar to obtain surveillance footage, which confirmed everything Michael had said during the interrogation. Analysis confirmed that the fingerprints and DNA found at the crime scene did not match. After Michael was cleared as a suspect, investigators turned their attention to the man who had been with Heather that night, Ottavio. With Kelsey's help in unlocking Heather's mobile phone, interest in Ottavio significantly increased. Detectives discovered that Heather had messaged Ottavio, a friend of hers, inviting him into her apartment just hours before she was found dead. Interviewer: what can you tell me about him? Responded, I don't know a whole lot about him. He seems like a very nice interviewer. Do you have any idea why we would send you a picture of her and Ottavio? Why that's a big deal? Respondent: I mean, I think they pretty good for it. But why did Heather call Ottavio to her home after Michael had saved her from him? The answer was simple. They were friends. However, Ottavio had become more. Now the detectives needed to speak with Ottavio to get his side of the story. What did you do yesterday afternoon? If it allowed, as you can see. So it was like we were having a little fun. We slept in, for 4 hours. Sir. Okay, and who is Heather? Ottavio. I bought my life to detective. You okay? Yeah, I've been at the article. Yeah, it was a little bit before we left to go to gym. Detective who took that picture of a die. She took it. The sack notebook. Do you know if it was posted or sent to any? It was on Snapchat. The detectives immediately realized that Ottavio was unaware of Heather's death, but what if she was somehow involved in this case? Meanwhile, the interrogation continued. Detective, if Heather says you came back over after she got home, would we believe that not to be true? Or Ottavio, yeah, I did show back over here after. Massey eventually asked about the late night message from Heather. It's like detective. She texted you at like 2:30 or something. See the text next. Seems like any time at it would be organized to an extent, like I think a lot is pro just being living. The detectives intensified their questioning of Ottavio using a tough interrogation method that not every suspect could withstand. The tech people saw you go into the apartment. Bone records put you at the apartment. You were with her yesterday. Your picture was with her. Okay, because here's what I'm tell you at this point. I believe she texted you to come back over there. You went over there. And then something happened. Not only was this girl raped, she's dead. Ottavio, what? Detective, in this way, go. And here's what I'm going to tell you. There's DNA all over that girl. It's going to come back, I believe, to one Mr. K. It's going to come back to Ottavio. Ottavio was shocked by what he heard. It seemed he genuinely didn't what had happened to Heather. Following the interrogation, he willingly agreed to a DNA test, confident that it would clear his name. The results proved him right, as the DNA found it. Without any leads, the detectives worked practically around the clock, reviewing surveillance footage and scrutinizing every detail provided by witnesses. On the 9th day of the investigation, as Detective Massey was preparing to leave the office late at night, he received a crucial call from one of the directors of the forensic laboratory. Massey finally got the answer regarding the bloody fingerprint that was lifted from Heather's bed. It belonged to a young man named Brandon Boulogne, whose fingerprints were on file due to his employment at a company where he had. How do you know Heather? We met at the gym. You know when that was? An intelligible response due to audio distortion. This development prompted Detective Massey to approach the interrogation very gently, wanting to give Brandon a chance to explain what happened that night. Have you been to her apartment? I have been to her apartment. At times you had gone over there. Did she have to let you in, or was the door unlocked, or do you remember? I think she usually left her door unlocked. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been sexually intimate with her? The second time we hooked up, yeah, we did. Invitation only. That might have been in July. The detectives knew he was lying because the fingerprint was fresh. Well, you were there. You know what happened. You know what happened. So now you need to tell me so that I can understand. I don't know I was there. I don't know I was there. Okay, then how did your finger get on the bed? There's no way I did anything. She just got accepted into college. I was happy for her. It seemed that Brandon understood he was caught, but he continued to deny any involvement in Heather's death. Look at me, young man. This is important. They can put you to death. Do you understand? Okay. Because this is the most important conversation you'll have in your life. The only way your bloody fingerprint got there is your hand was bloody. And you had your hands on her. You were raping her. Tell me. After questioning, detectives requested a DNA test from Brandon, suggesting that if he was innocent, the test would prove it. Brandon did as he was asked, perhaps hoping to be released from police custody, but that did not. The investigators decided not to wait for the test results. The match of the fingerprint provided substantial grounds for the next step. The police immediately sent a request to the court for permission to access Brandon's phone, which could help the investigation confirm his movements and track calls and texts on the night of the crime. However, they were unprepared for what they found on his phone. After court approval, the video from Brandon Bowling's phone was one of the most shocking discoveries, even for the most experienced detectives. In this video, the room of the poor Heather was captured. Brandon recorded everything from intimate acts to beatings. Heather was still alive at the time of the recording. In February 2018, Brandon Richmond Bowling pleaded guilty to the attack on Heather Maples. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole. On the day of the verdict, Heather's mother, Jennifer, made a speech that surprised many. I forgive Brandon Bowling for killing my daughter. From that day forward, I learned not to worry about anything. And when the trial ended, in the corridor, Jennifer approached Bowling's mother. Jennifer simply hugged this woman, saying that they both lost their children that. Unfortunately, Brandon Bowling never explained his motive. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think Brandon's motive was, if there was one?